Heyo everybody, Haku here with HaQ&A 80. We're at the HaQ&A 80 already. But yeah, there's not much to talk about here at the beginning before just jumping into sections, but this time we've got some Magical Girl Raising Project discussion, a little bit of One Piece, a little bit of all three anime that I am reviewing this season, and then of course a bunch of Tower of God at the end. Timestamps will be down in the comments, as always, and yeah. Before I get into those sections, I want to say I'm loving this anime season. It is so great. I'm loving Anima Yell, Uchi no Maid Goes to Sugiru, and tons of other shows. Comedies have been really good. Radiant is a shonen that I am absolutely in love with. I love Radiant right now. So yeah, there are tons and tons of shows right now that I am absolutely in love with, not to mention the ones that I am reviewing. So yeah, and also other than that, I wanted to bring it up here, just in case any of you have opinions on it, but for the past two seasons, 2.5 I guess, I reviewed The Walking Dead weekly, and there wasn't much of an audience for it anymore. I mean, audiences for my videos on it just dwindled over the seasons, and I really wasn't enjoying them that much, so that's why I decided not to review it this season. And then lo and behold, after the last two were so disappointing, this one's been incredible and I have loved it every step of the way. And so I want to do at least one video on it once the mid-season break is here, and I'll talk about the first half of the season. But I want to know if there's any interest in me reviewing it weekly again. If there is, I could try to fit it in somewhere. So yeah, just tell me if there's any interest in that, and I can try to fit it in the schedule somewhere. But yeah, other than that, guess that's it, and the first section I'll jump into is One Piece. Alright, so for One Piece, it's going to be real quick, just one comment. Dopamine, talking about the Whole Cake Island arc, said the grim nature of the whole leave or life situation really clashes with the extremely childlike atmosphere of Whole Cake Island. I like the contrast there. That is something that Whole Cake did incredibly well time and time again, was that contrast of kind of telling a dark, serious story in contrast to the childlike atmosphere. But Whole Cake was just generally a great arc, and what it did for me is it showed it and Zoe. Zoe was really just so good. It showed me that Oda can keep One Piece interesting and keep it great and be really good with storytelling, even post time skip, because for a while there, Fishman Island wasn't very good. What was that? Punk Hazard, I really liked it, but it wasn't all that or anything. Certainly neither one of them stood up to pre-time skip arcs. And then even with Dressrosa had really high points and really big events, and yet at the same time it was incredibly dragged out and slow, and a lot of chapters passed where just literally nothing happened, and Dressrosa was overall kind of a mess. So after a few arcs where it was just like, post-time skip One Piece is just not all that great, Oda really brought it back around with Zoe and with Whole Cake. Both were incredible, and Wano so far has been really good, and I'm excited to see where the rest of Wano will go. So yeah, One Piece definitely on the upswing with some really good arcs. In particular, Whole Cake was great. Next up we have Magical Girl Raising Project, and I've got some comments and stuff that were just generally in support of it, and I've talked a lot about it on Discord with you all, so I didn't really pick any specific comments. I just wanted to discuss not limited, I put limited in my notes here. Not limited, I wanted to discuss what I've read so far of JOKERS a little bit and how much I'm loving JOKERS so far. Since the read-through, I'm mostly reading through, and while I cut in to give thoughts on it throughout the read-through, I don't just go into depth on thoughts without being a part of, the read-through part of it is kind of the general main part of the video. But either way, I wanted to talk about JOKERS a little bit, because I'm loving it. I've read up to this point the first 48 pages, and it's both up in the two read-through videos. And I love it so far because it's doing a lot of things so much better than Limited did. Limited, even from the start, was quite slow, and even though it was slow, it felt like the characters didn't have these interesting connections to one another. Most of them were complete strangers to one another, really. and we didn't get much into who they were, what they felt, what their backstory was. And yet, in just this fraction of a chapter for Limited, I really feel for Princess Deluge and for Prism Cherry. They had really great backstories. We have this cool narrative of Fall kind of discussing his own existence, really, and what he is or isn't allowed to think or feel, and telling Snow White's story through his eyes allows Snow White and some of the things she's doing to stay mysterious, which is great. We have this concept of disruptors and of artificial magical girls, which is really great, and the fact that a normal artificial magical girl doesn't really understand or know about the land of magic, and the same goes for a land of magic magical girl about an artificial one. It's really, really cool how there's these two sides of the same thing that we haven't really even heard much of, let alone to see the two of them interacting like this. So it's really, really cool. In addition to that, is there anything else I'm forgetting? Oh, I love all the connections we're getting. How Princess Deluge is a classmate of Prism Cherry, and how Prism Cherry is joined in with the pure elements. We still don't know what's going on with this professor person. Then Snow White has that connection where, and all of this is really subtle, how we have that subtle connection with just the name Akari-chan being thrown out to let us know, oh, her childhood friend actually became Princess Inferno. So how is this going to play in? Are they going to find out eventually? Is it going to be horribly sad when they find out? There's so much really good subtle storytelling, like Fall saying, no, there's only one magical girl in the area, and that gives us the hint that, oh, he can only see Prism Cherry, he can't see Deluge, which is why he couldn't see Akari right in front of him. It's so subtle and just really, really good. JOKERS has been great so far, and it's only been a fraction of a chapter. So, of course, things could change, like Limited had a terrible ending. Limited, before the ending, was alright. There wasn't really many big, huge, amazing parts that I remember. There were a couple good scenes, but nothing really that stands out too much in comparison to how amazing and memorable so many scenes from Restart or from Unmarked that I could name off the top of my head are. So Limited was kind of a meh arc with a really bad ending. But even if things turn out to be bad for JOKERS in the end, even if the ending's pretty weak or even bad, the story itself so far has been good. So that's really great. Also, one thing I wanted to bring up here is that I read Platt's translations. I always have, because I can just message and talk to Platt whenever. But for this one, there's been like people talking about a separate, like a different version or a different translation. So, and it seems like this translation has stuff that the one I'm reading doesn't. So I don't understand how it works. Did Platt leave stuff out? Is it a different version, somebody else's translation? And why is somebody else's translation so different that it has extra stuff added? Or is it a different version of Limited, or JOKERS, I mean? Was it like there was JOKERS and then the JOKERS special edition came out, and I should be reading the special edition translation, and I'm not? I don't really know. So if somebody could explain to me the translation stuff, it would be helpful, because right now I know that there's two different ones, and I've had both Platts that I already have, and I've had the other one sent to me so I could look it over. I haven't read ahead, obviously, so I really don't understand the differences and what the two of them are. So if somebody could explain it, it'd be really, really helpful to me. But that's where I'm going to end the Magical Girl Raising Project section this week. Next up, we've got a Tensei Shitara Slime Again section. And Seek 210 starting it off said, it was a pretty good episode and pretty interesting how and talking about episode 4, I believe this was, episode 5, episode 6 is the one I just watched. It was a pretty good episode and pretty interesting how everything ended up with the king and how we knew in a way that everything was set up for them to lose. And he solved it in a way that seemed fair in front of everyone. I also liked the backstory too about someone who was more like a general villain. And yeah, I thought at first that it was a little dumb of the king not to just come out, call out the guy for what he did, And there was somebody else who said basically the same thing and explained it well. But yeah, I thought it was dumb at first that he wouldn't just come out, expose the guy, align with Rimuru. But you make a great point. The way he did it did save everyone's dignity in front of the crowd, and it comes as a loss to Dwargon, but I get why he did it more now. And like someone said, that if he's just going out with ministers of the kingdom like that and throwing them out there and saying what they did and all that, then it would come back negatively upon him, and it would cause a little bit of chaos among the citizens or the elites maybe. So yeah, there's totally that. And Seek210 also said about the most recent episode, I didn't know I put the same person's comments in twice, but they were both ones I wanted to discuss. Seek210 said, I like that we got to see the adventurers again, we even learned their names. I really like Shizu, and it's also pretty interesting that she was summoned from back in World War II. I think she has a side effect from her powers, as also the guy that summoned her called her a failure, and that might be a flag for her in the long run. Again, there seems to be a lot of flags for her in the long run. But yeah, that could be a reason why whatever's happening to her, whatever kind of illness or curse or whatever she has is happening. For me, some of my theories on it were that maybe she betrayed the guy that summoned her, and that's why the curse is coming on to her. Or maybe her person who summoned her died, and that's why the curse is affecting her. Or it could be that her body is not a strong enough vessel for Ifrit, so that's what's causing her illness or curse or whatever, is that her body's not strong enough for Ifrit. So yeah, I had a couple of my own theories for that, but yeah, thank you for the comments. Oh, I also love that we got to see the adventurers again. I hope that they kind of join up with Rimuru's group a little bit. He just keeps building upon his little city. I would love to see that. So yeah, that is it for that section. Next up, we have some Towato Majutsu no Index. 1993 Espada said, I think we haven't heard Etzali's name at this point in the story yet. It wouldn't be wise to call the guy that took Unabara's appearance as a disguise as something else. Again, I get it from the character's point of view, you're totally right. From the character's point of view, they might not know the whole Etzali stuff. Even though Cochitl did call him out, and he was like, oh yeah, she's a magician from, and I didn't know that they knew about magic and stuff so nonchalantly. But he's like, oh yeah, she's just a magician from the group I was with the Aztec church or Aztec religion and all that. So yeah, kind of weird. Or they might just know he's Etzali and they call him Unabara anyway. But I think we as fans knew he was Etzali. I'm pretty sure the name was at least mentioned, if he didn't say it completely outright, when they had the confrontation with him and Toma way back when he was taking Unabara's appearance. So yeah, I think we as fans already knew. Could be wrong though. Then Seek210 says, I agree with this episode being chaotic and I enjoyed it. It showed all the different underground factions, and I'm sure by the end of the season everything is going to connect. Stephen Johnson said, the pacing was like this in the light novels, so it's supposed to be chaotic. I got a bunch of comments talking about the chaotic pacing, because a lot of people in general were talking about that. And yeah, maybe the pacing was a little bit too quickly. That would be my only complaint with this season so far, is they could afford to maybe slow down the pacing a little bit. It was pretty crazy, and it seems they skimmed over some things. Like I said, there were some people like on Reddit and stuff when I looked at the episode discussion, because I occasionally do that for shows, not often but occasionally. And I think the most reason I looked at it was I wanted to see if there were some things that that were being skimmed over from the light novels, and it seems like there is some context missing there. And some extra development missing there that was in the light novels, and there were some people posting little guides to what they skimmed over and stuff to add extra context. So sometime before I watch the next episode, I do want to go and read through some of that. Seek210 said, I was pretty confused with some of the stuff in this episode with all the pace, but it also has to do with that I haven't seen Railgun. I did enjoy the whole storyline with all the different factions fighting. I enjoy the faction fighting stuff, but you totally need to watch Railgun. Like, I would say, if there's anybody that's watching Index that hasn't watched Railgun, you need to watch Railgun. The Tawado series is one of my absolute favorite ever, maybe my number one just favorite series of anime, light novel, whatever, ever. But I think that the 2 seasons of Railgun are each way, way better than both seasons of Index. Like, I love Index and all the characters and the way the story's told, but Railgun is just so much better. Like, I don't know if it's they use one central character and they can build connection that way, or if it's because they have sort of the vastly increased production quality, like the sound, animation, everything is just so much better it's hard to even compare. But the fights are amazing in Railgun, and the arcs, like the fights are so much more amazing there, and the arcs are just so much more emotional. So as much as I love Index, Railgun is just so much better. It is so good. And I guess in general another thing I'd say is maybe Railgun's story is just a bit more dark and more serious than Index is, because where Index has a lot of the fan service stuff, a lot of the harem comedy stuff, and some serious dark stuff, but it mainly focuses on a more lighthearted tone, where Railgun, it has the fan servicey stuff here and there, it has comedy stuff here and there, but in general there's a lot more dark and serious. It's a more serious tone. There's a lot more dark story to it. So yeah, definitely watch Railgun. Next up, we have the Zombieland Saga section. And one comment for this, Andrea Zapita said, also, is it me or is Tai getting progressively smarter? I mean, compare her to this episode and the first one, and now she can even understand simple instructions or commands. I think you might be right about her being the prototype zombie, which explains why she hasn't awoken yet, while Sakura being number 1, the second zombie, is lacking her memories, and that makes sense. Yeah, I totally still believe in that theory, kind of, that maybe she's the first zombie and that's why that she's kind of like the way she is, and Sakura's the second one, so she doesn't have memories, and then all the rest came out better. But also, I think that Tai is awake. I think maybe she woke up when the rest of the girls did. I think she's awake, but whatever's wrong with her, maybe like how sort of you could argue it's brain damage or whatever with Sakura, that she can't remember things from the past. It might be something similar with Tai, where maybe she seems awake to me, but she has trouble with fine motor skills, which is why she stumbles a bit. She has trouble with speech, which is why we can see her trying to talk and trying to like follow along with the other girls, but she just ends up like kind of moaning and making noises. And she has problems with impulse control. So I think that she might be awake, she just has, again, motor skill, speech, and impulse control problems. So she's an awake zombie. Because a lot of the things she does really seems like she's totally awake. So yeah, just some quick thoughts on Tai. And that's it for the Zombieland Saga section. Alrighty, last things last, let's finish things off with the Tower of God section, which is probably going to be longer than all the rest combined, to tell you the truth. But maybe not. Either way, I have got 2 pages of notes on comments to go through. So it is kind of a bit. But let's start off with Future Guy 2045. And this is kind of a chain of comments that are all kind of important for discussion. But Future Guy 2045 says, I really hope Bomb didn't find out off screen. I feel like I talked about this a little bit last HaQ&A, but sorry I'm getting distracted. Maybe I talked about it in the review and that's what I'm thinking of. But they said, I really hope Bomb didn't... Oh, and I really hope I didn't include this in last week's HaQ&A and I'm just repeating myself. But if I am just repeating myself, then give me a pass. All the rest of the comments are newer than this. But either way, Future Guy 2045 said, I really hope Bob didn't find out off-screen about Prince and Ackraptor. I really hate off-screen storytelling. CU seems to have gotten worse in that regard lately, first with the revelations on the floor of death still being unclear if it's been shared with the rest of the group, the skipping of all the side characters on the hidden floor, and the whole fight with Datazahard is yet to be talked about as far as we know, which could be the obvious first thing I would want to ask about if I was on Bomb's team. This doesn't ruin the series or anything, but it does lessen potentially awesome character interactions, discussion and growth, which I'd really like to see. I personally love seeing the reactions from characters learning crazy information. I just hope these moments still come, but I feel like the pacing of Tower of God lately is moving so quickly that we don't have time for moments like that, and the next thing you know, we'll have a time skip and the end of this season, and the chance will likely be gone. Now that my mini rant's over, I'd like to say this chapter was amazing, and Tower of God's still my favorite series of all time. I only criticize it because I love it and I want it to keep improving. Again, same reason I criticize it, and I do also want to say that, yeah, and this might be something that I didn't address in like my notes for my response, I do feel like the pacing can be too rushed. I love that it's a really fast-paced series, but maybe it can be a little bit too fast at times, and CU maybe needs to take his time with it a bit. I think maybe the reason he doesn't is pressure from Naver potentially, because he's talked about having to reach certain goals or whatever, or having to keep the story moving, but I really hope he has freedom to take his time with things. Renan said, if they talk about the hidden floor, they forget that info, at least while the floor existed. And I love the Ori girl. Hope she doesn't die this arc. Maybe just gets hurt or something. Future guy responded to that. I agree. However, I would bet that rule is no longer applied since it's been shown the rules of the train seem to have disappeared after the floor was erased. Plus, they entered with the master key. Perhaps they were immune to that restriction to begin with. Either way, good point, since they didn't necessarily know this at the time. So kind of answering things for me a little bit. But yeah, my thoughts on all that is, what happens on the hidden floor stays in the hidden floor. But seriously, I wanted to see Bomb learn that on screen too. I wanted to see him learn that on screen. I want this stuff to be told on screen because it has huge implications. Bomb learning about the deaths of Prince and Acraptor is massive for Bomb's character, and most importantly his relationships with other characters, and most importantly of those, with Rachel. That's a huge thing that's going to be a part of their character relationship, so I really don't want it to be something that happens off screen. But from Bomb's reaction, I would say that he already knows. Hold on, Yeah, I would say he already knows, and it would be sad if we get confirmation he already knows one way or the other. But also, you got to think, Bomb versus Elliot and Rack versus Inietta, both of those happened mostly off screen, and it was a tragedy both times because Bomb versus Elliot was hyped up. The little bit we saw was cool, and it should have been awesome. Same with Rack versus Inietta. It was really, really cool. Just the tiny bit we saw at the beginning, and then it ended without us getting to see how it ended. Rack and Inietta and Bomb and Elliot, both of those should have 100% been on screen, but they happened off screen too. And then, I think Tower of God's been at a great point since the late Hidden Floor. I keep saying this. Since that, it's been all great. Last chapter rather, because I'm recording this week, was particularly good, even among a really good current storyline. But yeah, it's going. Hold on. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so it's going like. Oh no, the pacing's going a little bit fast. I will say that. And the lazy one also said, maybe Bomb just knows over the course of time because he hasn't seen Prince and Acraptor anywhere for 2 months, and he could have figured it out without anyone telling him, but I could be wrong. And yeah, that makes total sense too, and I brought that up either in last HaQ&A or in the review that Bomb's kind, and he also doesn't know certain things, like he didn't grow up in the tower like everyone else. All he had was Rachel as a source of information. So Bomb doesn't have the knowledge that a lot of these characters that have grown up around concepts like Shinsu and concepts like the kingdom and all that. These people know things that Bomb obviously doesn't have any way of knowing by default. So he's kind and he has reasons for not knowing everything, but he isn't stupid. So I could see him totally having figured this out on his own. Easton Co. said, the chapter was amazing, just taking everything in. Only thing I'm bitter about is Rack getting sidearmed again. To be honest, especially since we've gotten to know about him being a native one. I know that the ancient ones and natives are different, but I'm sure Evan Kell could tell Rack something, or at least be an interesting conversation. And by the way, in the Hidden Floor arc, which I reread, Haku&A wanted to meet Yuan Sung on the outside, so we might just get to see that, hopefully. And Wangnan got a damn power-up with his Excalibur sword. Where's his time at? And Rachel needs to give his damn ring back, because looking back at Karaka's true reaction to finding out someone else has the ring, I'm sure he would want to find his brother, or maybe he knows, I can't remember. So yeah, actually, a lot of really amazing points there that I wanted to throw in. I don't think Rack's going to be pushed to the side too much this time, though, because I think we're going to get to see his group, like him, HaQ&A, and Railgun. I think we're going to see them a bit as they try to escape, maybe interact with a bunch of the regulars they have to fight, or interact with, like, Ship's team and stuff. Then, was there something else I wanted to say? Oh yeah, pretty sure... Yeah, Rack and Evankel are both related to Ancient Ones, not Native Ones. Even though the Ancient Ones are natives, it's a completely different thing than just normal natives. Then, what else? Sorry, I think I'm missing something. Oh yeah, for Karaka, he doesn't seem to recognize Wangnan because he's been around Wangnan, but he knows that whoever has the ring is his brother. For a while, and it's still possible it could happen, for a while I kept saying that he's going to see Rachel with the ring and think that Rachel is a sibling. That could still totally happen, because he knows, oh, somebody has the ring, that's my brother. But when he sees Wangnan, he doesn't know that it's Wangnan since he's not wearing the ring. So that tells me that he knows only that the person with the ring is his brother, not what the actual brother looks like. So then we have Renan, who says Yuri was at the closed eye side of her sister, so she wasn't certain if she helped you on Sling or not. I like the detail. Jinsung was a nice touch to end this amazing chapter. I don't think that has that's funny, but I don't think it has anything to do with it. I don't think, like, she was just paying attention to attacking and stuff, and she's like, that's Shinsu, that's Yuri's. It's not that she's literally questioning, was that Yuri because I couldn't see from the closed eye side. I don't think that it's actually that. Future Guy 2045 said, awesome chapter, I'm getting really hyped for the upcoming fights. Did someone else notice how Jinsung was smoking a cigarette instead of a lollipop? Is this foreshadowing of his death, or just him getting serious? Also, I can definitely see Bomb being used in a support role in this battle, which is still incredible, and will get his irregular status known. I wonder how a second Thorn will come into play, and maybe he'll have to put up a fight against Charlie and the Priest at some point in order to buy time. When it comes to the smoke... all that's good. When it comes to the smoking and stuff was a point I really wanted to address. I'm pretty sure we found out back when we were first introduced to Jinsung that he quit because of Bomb. So if he did that, then maybe he just relapsed because of the stress of Bomb and danger, or the stress of him having to face Calavan, because Calavan is pretty strong too, even for Jinsung. Jinsung's one of the strongest of the strong, but I would assume, being one of the few commanders of a squadron of Zahard's army, Calavan's probably incredibly strong too. Future Guy 2045 said, with everything Bomb's currently up against, I wonder if maybe this season won't end the way we're expecting, and instead throw us all for a loop. Remember how Season 1 ended? It was super unexpected, and maybe something similar will happen for the Season 2 finale. Maybe Bomb actually gets captured in order to save his friends, and then next season could start with a plan for FUG and the allies of Bomb to attempt a prison break. I know this all seems super unlikely, and it probably won't happen, but I think it's smart to keep our minds open, as we don't know how CU typically does season finales, since we've only had one so far. That actually would be a really cool story. Like, that'd be a really cool way to end this season and start next season, because I am a sucker for prison break stories, and I'm also a sucker for allies coming together without the main character to help the main character, and it would give so much development for Bomb's allies if they grew stronger in order to work with FUG and break him out of prison. It'd be so cool. So that would actually be a really cool story. Then lastly, for this video, Slayer Nominee said, Evankel went from battle to battle. She could have traveled to the same floor that Rack originated from, and he somehow remembers those flames from an observed battle. And that is a good observation, because we've had, like me and a bunch of other people in the comments have had our guesses of what Rack could be thinking. Maybe he's thinking he could use Evankel's flames. Maybe he's thinking he could absorb Evankel's flames. Maybe he just recognizes her as a fellow ancient. But it would be cool if what he actually recognizes is the flames in general because he has seen Evan kill before. That in particular would be something that I hadn't thought of and would be a cool story too. So a lot of you with really cool theories on stuff. But that would be it for this section. A little bit on the shorter side, but so is the HaQ&A. I just did one, I think not even a week ago, so that would explain it. But still, there was a lot to talk about, and it was fun to talk about it all, so I hope you all enjoyed this video. Like if you did like the video and comment down there anything you want me to talk about next week. Yeah, basically anything you thought about any of this or anything you want to talk about in the future for the HaQ&A, or to just talk to me and others in general. Subscribe for more of everything here and much more. Subscribe, wait, I just said that. Follow on Twitter if you want. I can try to keep you updated and stuff for the channel, or I can talk to you there. And if you want a link to our Discord server to talk to me or more of us about any of this, it's just a nice little community we've got going, and that I've been trying to work my best to get everybody together and get everybody talking, so that we can just all discuss stuff together. So yeah, it's just chill for us all to talk to each other. So if you want a link to the Discord server, ask and I'll give you. It's free and open for everyone. So that's it. Thank you once again for watching. Yeah, thank you so much, and I'll see you all next time.